Good evening. My name is Caitlin Wilson, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Shirley Povich Center for Sports Journalism. We hope you all are well and safe, and we thank you for joining us virtually tonight. Before we get started, I wanted to let everyone know what we will be recording this panel, and it will be posted on our YouTube channel tomorrow. Following our initial discussion, we will open things up for questions. If you'd like to ask a question, please do so using the Q&A function. It's Povich Center policy to reserve the first two questions for students. Now I'd like to turn things over to Merrill College student Zach Solon to get things started.
Thanks, Caitlin, and to the Povich Center and Merrill College for having us. It's my honor to introduce our panel today with all three guests being UMD alums. Our first panelist, Tim Kurkjian, graduated from UMD in 1978 and has had an extensive career in Major League Baseball. You've seen him online and on air for ESPN, so please welcome Tim Kurkjian. Our next guest is Brandon Lowe. Brandon played college baseball right here at UMD and helped the Terps to 2 super regional appearances. He was drafted by the Tampa Bay Rays in the 3rd round of the 2015 draft and has since burst onto the scene in the majors. An All-Star in 2019, he finished 3rd in AL Rookie of the Year voting and followed up with a solid performance this past year, helping the Rays reach the World Series. Please welcome Brandon Lowe. Adam Kolarek played here at UMD from 2008 to 2010 and was drafted by the Mets in the 2010 MLB draft. He made his Major League debut for the Rays in 2017 and then was traded to the Dodgers in 2019 after spending some time as a teammate of Brandon's. This past season, Kolarek pitched 19 innings with an 0.95 ERA and helped the Dodgers win the 2020 World Series, becoming just the 4th Terp to win baseball's biggest prize. So please welcome Adam Kolarek. I will now turn it over to the director of the Shirley Povich Center for Sports Journalism, Mark Hyman.
Thank you, Zach, and congratulations to you. Zach is graduating in January, and we will miss him. He's been a fantastic student, both at Merrill College and the Povich Center. So tonight, we're going to be looking back at the World Series through a University of Maryland lens, and we have the perfect panel to help us do that. But first, we have a challenge for Tim Kurkjian. Now, if you watch ESPN even a little bit, you know that Tim is a great student of baseball history. And having competed against Tim as a beat reporter many years ago, I can tell you that it is somewhat intimidating to compete against him because his knowledge of baseball is so encyclopedic. So tonight we're going to offer a Povich Center challenge for Tim, and it's a Kolarek family question, Tim. You'll have 30 minutes to consider this. We won't ask for an answer until 7:40. And if you answer correctly, you'll receive a valuable gift, an assortment of swag from the Povich Center, a Povich Center sticker and magnet. Okay, here's the question, Tim. Adam Kolarek's dad, Frank, played minor league baseball for 4 seasons. He was a catcher in the Oakland A's organization from 1976 to 79. In 1979, playing for the AAA Ogden A's of the Pacific Coast League, Frank's teammates included 1, a future Washington Nationals pitching coach, 2, a future Baseball Hall of Famer, and 3, one of 29 players in baseball history to appear in big league games in 4 decades, starting in 1978, ending in 2002. Got that?
Yeah, I'm not going to do the rest of the Zoom. I'm just going to go look all of this stuff up so we get it right at 7:40.
Okay.
Difficult stuff. Thanks
So,
for putting me on the spot right off the top here.
Caitlin is going to put the question in the chat box so folks who are watching can play along. We'll come back to this question in about 35 minutes. In the meantime, let's talk about a really incredible World Series, a historic World Series for obvious reasons, but also from a University of Maryland standpoint. Adam Kolarek is the first University of Maryland player to win the World Series since Ron Swoboda with the New York Mets in 1969. And Brandon and Adam are the first 2 players, Terps players, to compete in a World Series at the same time since 1917. So a fairly unusual World Series in that respect. And also, of course, the pandemic made this a very memorable series. But Tim, let's start with you. I mean, you've probably covered 40 World Series or more, including one that occurred during an earthquake. What do you think, looking back, what will you remember most about this series?
Well, first I'm going to remember how happy I was that we actually finished it, because there was a point there where I wasn't even sure if we were going to start the season. And then once we started it, I wasn't sure if we were going to finish it. So I'm just thrilled that we got 60 games in, had a memorable October. Personally, it wasn't my favorite World Series. It's the first time in 40 years that I did not attend the World Series. I watched the World Series from a cafeteria at ESPN, not exactly like being at the ballpark. However, it was a fascinating World Series. And as far as the playing of the games go, the end of Game 4 is the single craziest finish to any World Series playoff game I have ever seen. I was at the Buckner game. I've seen some of the oddest, craziest things ever, but no game in the history of baseball, no postseason game, has ever ended like Game 4 did, and I'll never forget that the rest of my life.
Adam, tell us about the way that some of the ways that the pandemic affected, what happened on the field. I'm interested in hearing more about the bubble. So you guys played in a bubble for what, 2 weeks in the postseason?
Closer to 4. Yeah, we started a semi-bubble in Los Angeles before heading to Texas for the beginning of the playoffs. So when we got to Texas, our team was actually kind of fortunate. We were able to kind of set up shop there at the Rangers Stadium, so we didn't have to travel once we were there. Brandon and the Rays, they had to go from San Diego, join that bubble, and then join ours in Texas. So we were able to settle in. I think the strangest part about it, just from a player standpoint, away from the field, was you're in your hotel room, you're getting ready for your normal game day, and you wake up in the morning, you go out into the lobby to get breakfast. And what was unique about this year was we were staying in the same hotel as the other team. So the guys who were playing the night before, especially those games against Tampa, every game was so close, and the way Game 4 ended, like you mentioned, the next morning you have to wake up and go downstairs and see everybody you just played against and go grab your breakfast. And it's a weird mix, because you're normally just seeing those guys at the field, so you're always in kind of a competitive mode. But the hours leading up to heading to the field, you're bumping into these guys in the hallways, and that was great for me because so many of those guys were former teammates and they're still great friends. So the bubble experience at the hotel was a little different. And then at the field, I think that was kind of the unique part. Once the game started, when you're on the mound, or I'm sure like when Brandon was in the box, I felt like that was one of the only times that everything felt normal. We were dealing with less fans those last 2 series, but it was great to have fans at all. So for us, I think in the moment when you're in the game, it felt just about as normal, because you're just locked in and really focused. And so when you kind of come out of the game, that's when you start noticing, we're only at smaller capacity, or at the time we were only dealing with cardboard cutouts there for a while. So that sort of atmosphere change was definitely hard to get used to, and hopefully we won't have to go getting used to it again this upcoming season.
Did you have your families with you in the bubble?
I did. I had my wife and her sister, as well as our 1-year-old son. So we had the 3 of us that those 3 would come to the games. So they grew accustomed to the bubble as well. The hotel living wasn't bad. They set it up really nice for the families and took care of everybody. So, they were really happy that they got to attend the games, especially, such meaningful games in the playoffs and throughout the World Series.
Brandon, tell us about your life in the bubble. Did you feel confined? Did it feel restricting?
Some of it, yeah. The worst part about the whole bubble situation was in my opinion, was like food. Is you couldn't go to a restaurant. Everything was served to you in a plastic box with plastic silverware and everything, and got delivered to your door. It was, it didn't feel like you had like a fresh meal because you're pulling everything out of a box and stuff like that. But that to me was probably the weirdest part of being in the bubble, in my opinion.
What about safety protocols? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Were you tested every day?
Tested every other day during the season, and then I actually don't remember if it picked back up in the postseason to every day. I think it still stayed every other day, just with the turnaround time of getting a test back and how quickly it took to get the results in. But all the other regulations we had, wearing a mask, trying to stay 6 feet apart from each other, and really handling things the right way. We actually designated one of our trainers was, he was the COVID guy. He had all the answers. He knew what to do. If you had any questions about anything that was going on, you had to go through him or ask him about it. And he did an incredible job throughout the whole year with everything. I know for certain that I wouldn't have wanted that. Making everybody wear masks that have never worn masks on a baseball field. He turned into the bad guy pretty quickly, but he handled everything very well and did a very good job for us.
Adam, you want to weigh in on that? The safety protocols?
Yeah, like Brandon said, we also had a trainer that was designated to kind of enforce the rules, as well as make sure the testing was, running smoothly, and coordinating all that stuff. That is not part of their job resumes. And our trainer who handled it, Ron Porterfield, used to be with Tampa, and he's had an important job for 30, 40 years in the game of baseball. And now he was asked to basically take on a whole other side of the medical side of things this season, and so much was asked of him as well as our whole staff. So the reason that the season and the playoffs and the World Series was able to be pulled off was really thanks to those people, because they just they had to be sticklers, and they didn't like laying down the hammer when they had to make sure everybody was following the rules. But if we didn't, chances are we wouldn't have been able to pull it off, and that's the last thing anyone wanted to have happen.
Timmy, were there points during the season where you wondered whether we were going to get to a World Series?
Yeah, I mean, after the problems early with the Marlins on the first road trip of the season, what a disaster that was, followed by what the Cardinals went through, trapped in a hotel room basically for 10 days. I didn't see any way that both of those teams would be able to play 60 games, and yet miraculously, with a zillion doubleheaders, they did. And I really think the players especially deserve an enormous amount of respect for showing the discipline that was necessary to get through the season. Because after about 3 weeks, I don't think a whole lot of people even thought we would get to October. And instead, we had a spectacular October. Mark, we had 8 playoff games in one day. I called I was broadcasting 2 of them. I called it the greatest day of my whole life. And a couple of people said, Tim, you're married. You have 2 children, and 8 playoff games in one day is the biggest day of your whole life. I was kidding. I was trying to make a point that it was a memorable day in baseball. It was fabulous. And I didn't think we were going to get to October, and we did. And like I said, to finish October was just a great, great achievement.
So one more, pandemic question. And I wondered this watching the games. I mean, you see these rituals that happen in baseball. A guy hits a home run and he crosses the plate, and his teammate wants to embrace him or, touch him in some way. And there's so many moments like that in baseball. And I wonder, from a player's perspective, how do you discipline yourself, or do you, to socially distance in that environment? I mean, are you guys thinking about that? When a big moment happens on the play, hey, I've got to take a step back.
Go ahead, B. You want to handle that one?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely on our minds for the regular season. I think anytime something happened, whether someone hit a home run or something good happened, we had all developed a way to do your handshake or whatever you want to do without touching the other person. And then even if you did, someone hit a home run, he came through slapping everyone's hands. The guy that followed the person that hit the homer was a trainer with a bottle of hand sanitizer and was making sure everybody got a squirt of hand sanitizer to wash their hands after. And yeah, I mean, everything was an adjustment to celebrations of, walk-offs and stuff like that. Like we had a couple walk-offs during the year that, instead of running up and dumping a water cooler on somebody, you jumped from 6 feet away, throwing your hands in the air and throwing bubble gum at them. Like, I mean, everything was definitely a little bit different in every aspect. But, once we had gotten to the postseason, we were in a secure bubble. It kind of loosened things up a little bit. We were able to have a little bit more fun with it and, be more of ourselves out there on the field.
Adam, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, being in the bullpen, you see the hitters and, the walk-offs and the home runs, those are the creative guys down there. Like Bilal has all his handshakes with his guys and, so do our position players. So they get creative and just because they couldn't touch hands, that didn't stop them from coming up with their own, socially distant handshakes and celebrations. But, you see the stuff on the field. It's really, it's kind of funny. I think players just made the most of it. You saw Anthony Rizzo on first base, giving hand sanitizer to the other team's hitter who just hit a single. So they're at first base. And because they were close to each other, he gave him a little hand sanitizer. So just little silly things like that, you make light of it in the sense, but, also understand the seriousness that, these little things that little rules that they've come up with, it's all just so we can pull off the games and pull off the, what everybody wants to see. So, it's a little funny to watch, but, I think we get used to it and we were able to move past it.
And Mark, if I may, there were no high fives for me, by the way, during the season, because I tried to broadcast games, emphasis on tried. I did 15 games this year from the booth. But I did every one of the games from my house, all by myself. The play-by-play guy was 400 miles away. The other analyst was 1,500 miles away. And a bunch of times the game was 3,000 miles away. And I'm watching it on TV. And we're trying to orchestrate the three of us together when we can't even see each other. And then one game, the camera during the open, like the open in TV is all that matters. If you nail the open, everything's great. My camera went dark during the open, but the audio was still on. So I had to keep talking, even though I just looked like a skeleton, like an apparition. And my two broadcast partners, Carl Ravitch and Eduardo Perez, they were just laughing their butts off because I was trapped in the dark in my own house trying to broadcast a game. So we all went through some major adjustments this year.
Yeah, so I know that you're, a great fan of technology, Tim, that you just love learning these new technological kind of, parts of your job. So that must have been anxiety ridden for you as well, wondering whether you were going to be on the air every time telecast began.
Look, I'm going to be 64 any day now. And believe me, when you get to be 64 and you have no technological savvy, it is a nightmare. There were a couple times where I sat on the couch right over there and almost started to cry because I couldn't figure out how to do the technology. I was just wrapped up in wires and strings. I felt like I was on the inside of an old golf ball. It was awful. And if it wasn't for some brilliant technological people back in Bristol, I would have never gotten on the air. So thank goodness to them. But that was the loneliest feeling I've ever had, being alone in my house with all that technology and having no idea what's going to happen next.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what actually happened on the field in the series. And, I picked out a couple of moments, one for Adam and one for Brandon that, for me were highlights, and I think for people who care about Maryland baseball would be highlights. For Adam, he had one appearance in the series in Game 4, and he faced 3 batters, got 2 outs, and the final out, I believe, that he got was a strikeout, and Brandon, sorry, but I think Brandon was the victim of that strikeout. And I think that we have video of that we can share.
No.
Now. I think we do.
God. Now I get to see how far inside this.
Here it comes, and a swing and a miss by Lowe. 2 out. Roberts doesn't hesitate, goes right to the steps with Willie Adames coming up. Here it comes, and
So, Adam, you've known this guy about as well as you can know another major league player. You've been teammates. You've actually been roommates. Is that an advantage when you're facing him in the World Series?
For me, Brandon is one of the best left-handed hitters in all of baseball. So, my plan of attack against those kind of lefties like Brandon, I think he knew probably what I was going to try to do. And I knew that he knew probably what I was going to try to do. So I had to be perfect against him. And, I'm executing my pitch right where I wanted it. I got ahead in the count. I think the only unfortunate part for Brandon was that he was the third batter I faced, because the first batter I walked, and then I kind of found it on the second batter. So by the time Brandon came up, I was feeling really confident with where my release point was. And I'm not, you don't make a career against facing guys like Lowe every single time. So I'm going to take it sparingly. And, if that's the only time I get to face him, that's okay with me.
Brandon, what do you remember about that at bat?
I remember it very well. I remember getting the first pitch of the at bat in. I've never faced AK before in my life. I just knew, playing behind him for the past few years, he makes every lefty look horrible. So my first option was, I have to take this first pitch and see what this is even going to look like. And the ball hit the catcher's mitt, and I did not see the ball. I was praying that it was going to be a ball. It sounded like a ball. I thought it was in. And umpire called it a strike, and first thing that goes through my head is, God, I'm in trouble. Next pitch, another great pitch, and then I was just like, he's painted 2 pitches on the inside corner. He's been very good so far. He's going to come back onto that inside corner. Well, he started it there. It did not end up there, and was a very uncomfortable at bat. There's not a whole lot of at bats that you're just very uncomfortable in, and he is definitely one of the at bats that you don't look forward to at all.
Did you see this coming? I mean, are you sitting in the dugout or, obviously in the on deck circle and think,
Yeah,
this is really going to happen?
I think Meadows was hitting in front of me in that game, and as soon as AK got up, Chad, our head coach, calls us over and goes, "You guys understand that you're not going to face the righty that's on the mound right now. Kolarek's in the bin. He's getting ready for you guys." And we're like, "Yeah, great. Like, show me the scouting report, show me some video, anything to try to get me ready." And nothing is going to get you ready. And all you need is at bats. Like, seeing a pitch come from down there as hard as he throws it, it's ridiculous. It shouldn't be able to happen, but I got one under my belt. I don't know if I want another at bat.
Timmy, Adam's ERA in 2020 was 0.95. How good is that from a historical perspective?
Well, that's awfully good, but I would like Adam to tell us, when he dropped his arm angle, meaning he was a 3/4 pitcher, then he dropped down to the side. Who had you do that, Adam? And how much better are you now because of that different arm angle?
Sure. So that was actually a decision that I made on my own. When I was making my way through the minor leagues with the Mets, I got to AA, relatively quickly, but I stalled out there. I played parts of 4 years in AA there in Binghamton. And during my final year there, I kind of, I was having an up and down year, and I just felt like something needed to change if I wanted to and have any hope of, making that next step, even just to get to AAA. So, when I shagged, during batting practice, I always had thrown sidearm to get the ball, into the bucket there. And that was just kind of my idea. I was like, I can make this ball move on the ground, and make it land at the bucket after it moves through the grass. And I was just like, let's just see what it looks like off the mound. So I literally went during batting practice up to my pitching coach and just said I wanted to see what this looked like. So he was like, all right, let's hop on the mound right now. So I literally tried it that afternoon, and he was like, I like it. It looks good. And he had been my pitching coach for 4 years as well, because we were together in Lowe and then the whole time in Double-A. So we knew each other well, and it was just one of those moments. I can't really explain it other than I just went for it. And I played some winter ball in Puerto Rico to try to iron in that, new arm slot just to feel more comfortable with it. And, unfortunately, the Mets, didn't re-sign me, but that led me to be available, and Tampa signed me. And, with their, outstanding minor league system, as well as the coaches that they now have at the big league level, they really helped me out a lot to learn, and help me progress even more so with that new arm slot. And, I wasn't trying to throw, hard. I was just trying to make the ball move. And I felt like that was going to be my only, next chance to try to have something work out for me. So, I haven't looked back. Every once in a while, I'll throw a pitch over the top just to kind of fool a batter, give him a different look. But for the most part, I just kind of throw sidearm now and trust the movement and try to get a lot of ground balls.
Adam, how long before you were really sold on dropping down full time?
Honestly, right away. So I probably did it in May. So I had the rest of the summer to work on it. In the minor leagues, it's about 3 more months. So I kind of would go through these stretches of 2 weeks of being, honestly, I just wouldn't give up a hit for like 2 weeks. And then I would kind of lose that slot a little bit. I get a little too low or I get a little too high with it. And I would walk a lot of people. And then that would last for about 2 weeks. And I would go on another streak there of, it really working. So I knew it was there, and I just had to kind of hone it and work on it even more so, which is why I decided to play winter ball and, just get some more innings under my belt from that new slot. So I did that for 2 years to go along with more time in the minors before I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity there with Tampa in 2017. So it took about 2 years of sidearm practice, I guess, to earn away and get an opportunity at the major league level.
Hey, Brandon Lowe had a pretty good World Series. I don't know if you remember that, but actually the postseason didn't start out so great. Brandon, you started out 6 for 56, and then in Game 2 of the World Series, you kind of broke out with 2 home runs in Game 2, and you ended the series with 3 home runs. And I believe that we have video of that second home run in Game 2.
Baez brings it. And a high fly ball into left center field. Back at the wall. It is gone. Brandon Lowe has put the Rays on top with a 3-run home run the other way. It's 5-4 Tampa Bay here in the 6th.
So I think I know what Dave Roberts was thinking, manager of the Dodgers, as we saw him shaking his head. What do you think about when you hit a home run in the World Series and you're running around the bases?
There's not a whole lot going through my head at that moment. I was mainly up there just trying to put the ball in play off of that guy on the mound right there. Really good stuff, and I'd been swinging a little bit too aggressively, I would say, especially during that game. And I was getting a little wild and told myself, just hit a ball the other way, try to get a run in. If not, advance some people. And as soon as I hit the ball, I was like, that has a chance. Thankfully, I didn't have to start sprinting around the bases because we had runners on first and second, so I could jog and watch it the whole way. And as soon as I really started going, man, I'm pretty sure I blacked out. There wasn't a whole lot going through my head.
Brandon, you're not the biggest guy in the world. You're 5'10", maybe 185 pounds. That's why I love baseball. You can hit a ball that far without being the biggest guy on the field. How do you explain power, especially opposite field power, when you don't weigh 220 like so many guys today?
Oh man, this Zoom call would go on for four more hours. Really, it all goes back and stems back to what I've been doing with Hunter Bledsoe and the guys at the Bledsoe Agency. We've really kind of developed the swing in a way to, be efficient as possible, being able to store up energy and, release that energy, as forceful and everything that you can to do as much damage into the ball, at all times. And it stems from, band work to heavy bats to, there's just a whole mess of different things that if you saw me in the cage, you'd wonder if I knew what I was doing.
So look, before we go to questions, I want to talk to you about your times at the University of Maryland. What's so interesting to me is that you both have, in addition to having played at Maryland, you both have a family connection to having played at Maryland. Adam's dad played for the Terps. And as I learned just before the call, Adam's dad was an assistant coach for the Terps. And Brandon, your wife, Madison, you met her at Maryland. She was a star pitcher on the softball team. I heard that you met her at an Xfinity study hall on an October night.
That is correct.
What could be more romantic than that?
I'll chime in and say that I met my wife at Bentley's, so that might be the only thing better at study hall.
Way better.
Study hall, it's all good there.
I did not know that. So you guys were not teammates. Adam was gone by the time that Brandon arrived. But what did you learn at Maryland that you think helped you on this trajectory toward your major league career? What can you look back on?
Go ahead, Adam.
Well, for me, at the time when I was at Maryland, we were still in the ACC. And, as far as the ACC went, we were, towards the bottom 2, 3, 4 teams there. But I knew that going in because I really wanted that opportunity to go against the best competition, arguably in the country. It's one of the best baseball conferences out there, especially was at the time. So for me, I think when I first joined Maryland, we were, I was instantly the underdog, heading into a lot of those matchups against, these nationally ranked teams. So I think that kind of taught me at a very, young age of, 18 to, what it means to outwork your opponent because they're expected to win or, you have to do so much more to, have success against those teams. So oftentimes they have more talent than you do. So how do you win despite the other team having more talent? So, learning that, early on in college, I think went a long way when I was making my climb through the minors, because, when you're struggling there in the minors, it really does feel like it's, it's close to being unattainable. And, but I think because of that little edge that I learned at Maryland, as far as having to fight and be counted out plenty times, but, in the end, it's all about what you can do on the field. So as a relief pitcher, for me, it was, not walking guys, number one thing a manager wants is to know what kind of person they're putting in the game. And if you're inconsistent, then they can't rely on you, night in and night out. So I learned consistency at Maryland. I learned how to be, tough and have that kind of underdog mentality. And that kind of carried me through. And I think Brandon could probably talk to it as well, because, when I joined Tampa, when I first got called up, we certainly were the underdogs every single time we went into Fenway or went to Yankee Stadium. So I think it's no secret that Tampa is having the success they are now because they got used to being the underdog, and they, have had to go the extra mile and to, go up against the better talent that's out there. But, this World Series, went to 6 games and went up against, the big Los Angeles team, but they were on that national stage. And, I think Brandon could probably speak to that now, as far as just, being kind of counted out, and learning from an early age that, size or stuff or size or, strength doesn't matter. It's about, the fight inside of you.
Brandon?
I'd say probably one of the biggest things for me that I learned, probably a couple of things, is one was what a weight room was. Coming into college, I think I weighed $150 soaking wet, and they got on me pretty quickly about that. And for a guy my size and stuff like that, strength and weight and being able to maintain and put on weight was a big deal for me that I'd never thought even remotely about. So getting in, understanding what to do in the weight room, understanding diet and stuff like that. They sat me down with someone to help me, plan out meals and stuff like that, and understand what I need to do to gain weight and stuff like that. And then time management was a huge thing that I'd never thought about. I never had study hall. I never had to work out. I went to school and I played baseball in high school, and that was all I did. So I had all this extra free time that, I just played video games or went outside with my friends, and that's all I did. And then, I got to school and it was like, you miss lift, there's punishment. You miss classes, there's punishment. You miss, you're late to practice when you don't have to be, there's consequences. You don't do study hall, there's consequences. And understanding, it made me grow up pretty quickly. I was 18, 17 when I went into college, and I had to grow up pretty quickly in that aspect of, learning and understanding what I needed to do in order to be successful on the field.
Brandon, back to your wife for a minute. Madison Bumgarner's wife was a college catcher in softball, and one day he needed somebody to throw to. There was no one around, so his wife caught his bullpen, and he was throwing 90 miles an hour. What's it like for you to be married to someone who throws as hard as she did and can understand what you're going through in a major league game, at least on some level?
So I actually tried to catch her when we were both in college. She would come and come visit me, for Thanksgiving or whatever. And, she was very driven and stuff like that. She was like, Brandon, I can't take 4 days off. I can't take 3 days off. Like, I have to pitch. You have to catch me. And so the first day I was like, fine. Like, I can do that. It's not that hard. And boy, I took one throw and threw on a full thing of catcher's gear. She threw one rise ball and it zoomed right past my head. And that's enough for me. And, full gear, helmet, everything. I made no exceptions. So I was, it's nice to have somebody that really understands and has that same work ethic and drive that I did. But to be able to have that at the end of the day it's incredible. Because, I can get back and talk, what happened or what I was feeling in my swing. And that's one of the good things is over the years, since I started developing the new swing, she's been with me. So she's kind of learned it along there with me. And, she could see something that's off and kind of give me a nudge in the right direction when things aren't feeling too good, or, just gives me a place that she understands. She can come back and forth with me when we talk about the games and what happened and, what she sees and stuff like that. So it's definitely a nice thing to have at home at the end of the day.
Hey, guys, we work in a journalism school. So we're very interested in sports journalism, and I'm interested in your take on baseball news. What do you read and what do you watch when you want to keep abreast of what's going on in baseball?
Normally we have, the MLB network on in the locker room. This time of year is actually kind of when I start, I take that, month break, as soon as the season's over. But this time of year, now that the winter meetings are happening, you're starting to see where free agents are going. There's been a few trades. So, this time of year, it starts to kind of pick up again. And, you start looking at the outlook for the upcoming season. So, I do enjoy, keeping up and seeing who's on the, trade blocks or who could potentially be the big free agent signings. Cause, they're starting to directly affect us as far as, who's going to be on our rosters come this spring. So I think, this time of year is especially exciting with, with the roster changes.
Brandon?
Yeah, I'd say probably MLB Network, ESPN, and Twitter are huge. That's how I stay in tune with the game, honestly. During the season, it's great to turn it on and kind of catch up on games that, either finish after us or, we didn't get to see, especially now, we've both had a few years in the big leagues, more guys, you're friends with guys on other teams and stuff like that. So it's kind of nice to be able to check in and see how they're doing. And like you said, around this time, it does get pretty interesting trying to see who is going to sign and who is going to, go to what teams.
Who would you say is your favorite ESPN personality?
I mean, I think that's an easy choice. If you were to tell me when I was in high school that one day I'd be on a Zoom call with the all-star second baseman for Tampa Bay and Tim Kurkjian, I probably wouldn't have believed you. So this is, very exciting, for the little kid and all of us, to have, it is cool. You see guys like Tim in the locker room and, Buster Olney or Tom Verducci, these guys that you've seen on TV growing up, and now they're talking about your game that you're taking part in. So it's still very surreal in a sense, and it's certainly exciting.
Absolutely.
One more journalism question. Do you read stories about yourself? For instance, Brandon, I probably shouldn't mention this, but I read a story recently about whether this might be a good time to trade Brandon Lowe because the guy's stock is so high. And, it's interesting for me to read that. I wonder if it's interesting for you to be reading that.
Yes. I mean, with technology and everything nowadays, I feel like everything's a click away. So I actually did read that article mainly because I was interested. I was like, all right, what teams could I get traded to? Like, let's see what this guy thinks. And, obviously you take it to a grain of salt. This guy has no idea what's going on in our organization or anything like that. But I just thought it was interesting to read it. There's some that I won't even click on or even read. That one I thought was interesting. Some of the other stuff that, is a nice article, maybe I'll read. But the ones that are ripping me, probably not.
Well, I think we've just about come to the end of the time that we have for our conversation. Before we go to audience questions, Tim, we're going to come back to you for the answers to our Adam Kolarek's dad trivia question. So remember, we were talking about the 1979 Ogden A's, and the questions were, number one, among Frank's teammates, there was a future Washington Nationals pitching coach. Do you know who that was?
That was Steve McCaddy.
That's correct. There was a future Hall of Famer on that team. Who was that?
Well, that's the only one I was sure I was going to get. It has to be Ricky Henderson.
That's correct. This is like watching Houdini get out of a straitjacket. Okay. Here's the last one. One of 29 players in baseball history to appear in big league games in 4 decades, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Who was that?
Well, I'm going to object on this one because Ricky Henderson is a 4-decade player also. So he's the answer to number 3 also. But, and I'm guessing on this one, I think Mike Morgan is on that list, right?
That's correct.
I covered Mike Morgan with the Orioles. He is so good. He came straight from high school to the big leagues, okay? Straight from high school, and he had no business being in the big leagues. So Jim Essien, his catcher, says to Mike Morgan, listen, kid, before the first start, whatever finger I put down, that's what I want you to throw, okay? And Mike Morgan goes, well, you're only going to need one finger because I can only throw one pitch fastball. That's how Mike Morgan started his major league career. He came to pitch for the Orioles in the mid-'80s. It didn't go very well, but he's one of my favorite guys, and I'm thrilled that I got that one right because I was racking my brain on him.
Tim, I'm pleased to report that you've won a Povich Center magnet and sticker.
Thanks. I thought I'd get an eraser and a thimble or something like that. Thank you.
So this hour was a terrific investment for you. Okay, Caitlin Wilson is here to shoot some questions at the panel.
Yes.
Caitlin?
Hi. And before we get started, Adam, I just wanted to add that my husband and I had our first date at Santa Fe Cafe. So not Bentley's, but you can find love on Route 1.
Very nice. Busy.
Our first question comes from a Merrill College student named Colin. Both of you will have future teammates who were seniors during the COVID season, which were lightly shortened and had different playing styles. How much did your last collegiate season impact your ability to compete for a spot in both the minors and the big leagues?
Yeah, I honestly feel worse, or I feel the most, heartfelt. I feel terrible for the kids that are seniors, especially in high school as well, who are often looking for, to try to earn their way into a college. Your final year, your senior year, I mean, take away the possibility of the fact that, you want to play professional baseball, but just being a senior, finishing out your career on a high note, those are all things that you want to look forward to. And you had been looking forward to your whole life. You look forward to senior day on the field, getting the jersey with your family and the coach, and, not to have those memories, or, hopefully they can pull off, different ceremonies like that. But, as far as affecting, your, next step, it certainly can affect it. I wasn't a big prospect necessarily at Maryland. I had a few good games my junior year, which, kind of, as a lefty, I kind of was, able to project well and drew some interest. So certainly those games, sometimes it's not always like a season of, impressive baseball that you need to put out there for scouts. It's often just, little things and, kind of flash signs of, what could be one day. So, anytime you miss out on those opportunities, it's certainly tough.
Brandon?
Yeah, I think I can't speak for the senior day stuff because, I left before my senior year, but without my last year at Maryland, I don't know that I am even drafted, let alone in the big leagues, playing in a World Series a couple months ago. After my redshirt freshman year, we had that pro day or whatever when all the area scouts can come in and talk to you and say that, hey, we're looking at you to possibly draft you, fill out this questionnaire for us. And I think I filled out like 3 or 4 questionnaires maybe. And didn't have an agent, didn't, even think about being drafted my redshirt sophomore year. Didn't think it was a possibility, didn't even worry about it until about 2 months into the year, about a month out from the draft. We had gotten a call from a scout. It was like, hey, we see you in the first 4 rounds. And I called my dad and I was like, do you have any idea what happens in a pro draft? He was like, no, I have no clue. So the next day we ended up meeting with a few advisors at the time to have some sort of idea of what was going to happen. We had no clue what was going on. And without that last season, I don't know that I'm here where I am today.
Okay, thanks. Our next question comes from Robert. There were many changes this year, from no fans to changes of the pace in games, 7 innings for doubleheaders, and so on. Do you see any new things used in this 2020 season that could carry forward into the future?
I kind of heard today that it sounds like the DH will not be continuing in the National League. So, for me, I didn't think there needed to be any changes to begin with. I think what makes baseball beautiful in its own right is, not having a clock. You can't just run out the clock and take a knee and let the buzzer go off. So, you have to get the final out, and that's, I think, trying to shorten games and make them quicker. I don't think it's necessary. 7-inning doubleheaders, they were kind of cool because it made for a short, those were long days. And as a reliever, I don't have it anywhere near as tough as somebody like Brandon, who could probably play in both of those games. So maybe the 7-inning doubleheader, some position players might like a little bit more.
Yes, these 7 innings doubleheader were fantastic for us position players. 14 innings instead of 18 was phenomenal. My legs thanked me for that. But The DH was fun. I think maybe in the next few years, I know the CBA is coming up, so that's probably a talking point in some way or form. But other than those two things, there weren't very many changes that I could see coming or are necessary.
Let's have Tim weigh in on that. Curious to know what you think, Tim.
All right. Again, sorry, I'm 63 years old. We've been playing 9 innings for 150 years. I think we should play all the games at 9 innings. And I'm sorry, you can't put a runner on second base to start the 10th inning of a big league game. I was all in favor of all of the changes for this season, the world's strangest, most bizarre season. I would have done anything just to get through the season. But when we start playing 162 again, we can't have those two rules in place. That Caleb Thielbar guy of the Twins this year, a reliever, came into a game. He faced 5 batters in the game. He retired all of them. And because of the way the game finished, he got the loss. He faced 5 batters, got everyone out, and got a loss. There's something wrong with that equation. So sorry, I know the games take too long, but we should play 9 innings. This is the big leagues, and we should play until somebody wins.
Okay, our next question comes from Ethan. He would love to hear from the hitting and pitching perspective how much in-game video data analyst plays a factor before each at bat or each relief inning.
Well, this year, none. It took away our video. They took away a lot of the stuff for us this year, honestly. We had game video from previous games and data from previous games, but you couldn't go back in game and see where a pitch was or anything like that. So that was definitely a sore subject around the hitters, at least. That was one of the things that we enjoyed, being able to go see, where pitches were, to kind of solidify your zone and understand, what pitches that you actually need to adjust to be able to hit, or understanding the pitch that was called a strike was actually a ball. But, being that is one of the things that is extremely valuable for us hitters. But I can't speak for Adam or any other pitchers, but I would assume that they probably enjoyed it.
Yeah, we don't look at too much video at all during a game as a pitcher. All that stuff is done pregame, just to kind of, if you haven't faced a certain hitter in their lineup, you can watch, 100 of their at bats to kind of get a better feel for, what you're going to do when you face them. I know the hitters on our team also did not like not being able to see the video during the game. And that was mainly, it was due in part or totally because of the Astros and the whole cheating scandal. So it was a little bit of, I guess the new rule was kind of, like a parent, if one, or, a teacher, one kid screws up, the whole class has to suffer. So I think that, but at the same time, actually one of our shortstop, Corey Seager, he kind of ended up liking it because he was thinking too much. He felt that going in after every single at bat to evaluate his swing was only putting more thoughts in his head. So I think it kind of depends, from player to player, but it'll be interesting to see if that rule gets lessened a little bit.
So a related question, there's so much data that's being collected on you guys, launch angle, and a million things. Do you want to know that stuff? Is that important to you? And if so, how do you use that data?
Launch angle and stuff, I could care less about. The main statistic I like is exit velo, just understanding, I hit that ball solid. I understand that, it might be a hit, it might not be a hit, but the only thing that I can control up there at the plate is how well I hit the ball. So that is the big statistic for me, because, I've gotten hits at 40 miles an hour and I've gotten outs at 110. You can't control what happens after you hit it. So the big statistic for me was how well did I hit that ball.
Yeah, the data for the pitchers, there's obviously a whole lot of it. From my arm slot, I'm trying to create as much movement as possible on my sinker, especially. So I don't necessarily need to know those numbers in game, but you are able to read trends. and realize, if you're maybe not having the success you think you should be, you can go back and look at that data and realize that your pitch isn't moving as much. And then you're able to look at other data and see, well, why is that? And normally for a pitcher, it's the angle you're creating with the baseball and the spin rate. So if you're able to increase that spin rate and get the proper angle with the baseball, that's going to create the movement. So those are things that, kind of during the day I will look at, but not during a game.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. This one comes from a student, Reese. For both Brandon and Adam, what were your favorite memories from your playing days at Maryland?
Go ahead.
Me first. Well, honestly, I am still close with, dozens of my former teammates. The relationships that we had, during those times, it's irreplaceable. I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to play there and meet those guys. They were groomsmen, they were my best men. I've been in their weddings. Those are the memories that last way beyond, those just 4 years that you were in college. Like I was saying before, we were always the underdog against going up against the better teams in the ACC. So every win that we had was really special. It really, a lot had to go right, and we had to play really well to get a win. So, even though while I was there, we didn't do a ton of winning, it's awesome to see where the program is at now. That's due in large part to the coaches as well as players like Brandon that came after me, because you start building the recruiting and the better players start coming in. Now you want to go to Maryland because it is a good baseball school. And I think that's where the program's at now. And, the memories on the field are great. The big wins that we had were awesome, but it's just the teammates, it's the relationships that I still have and I'll have forever.
God, his answer is so much nicer than mine.
Was he at 3 in the game or something?
Mine goes back to an on-field moment. We were down in the South Carolina regional, and I don't know exactly what inning it was, but we had the lead. We're beating South Carolina. We were about to win the regional for the first time in some odd amount of years, and one of the Carolina fans stands up and just kind of lifts his arm up to kind of pump the crowd up, and every single fan jumps up and starts screaming to a point where my ears were rattling. It was the loudest that I've been in a stadium at that point in my life. I'd never seen anything like that. And then, our guy comes in, shuts the door on him, and the entire stadium just quiets out and everyone leaves. We end up dogpiling. It's still probably one of the best moments I've had, especially at Maryland.
That's great.
And Mark, for what it's worth, my time at Maryland, I took coaching baseball, which is an upper elective, two credit course with Coach Jack Jackson, who I loved. I learned so much in there. And he told the class that he had a star pitcher on his team, and he told the star pitcher before like an ACC championship game, I need you to move your car. It's parked legally. He told the pitcher that 3 times before the game. The pitcher did not move his car, and Coach Jackson took him off the team and pitched somebody else in that game, showing I told you what to do and you didn't do it. You have to show more discipline than that. It was so interesting to take coaching baseball at Maryland. I also, by the way, took coaching basketball there. And during one of the finals, one of the guys on the basketball team at Maryland took my test off of my desk and copied a couple of my answers, like, how do you play a 1-3-1 defense? He was on the team and he stole my test. So those are my 2 favorite memories of sports in Maryland.
I'm assuming you got an A.
I got an A in both classes. I got a pin and a sticker for that, by the way.
Well, that's great. This has been so much fun. And so we can't thank you guys enough for being a part of this panel. It's been great. I think the Rays and the Dodgers should be in the World Series every year so that we can do this panel again every December. So,
hopefully we have a different outcome next time.
So everybody have a great holiday. Everybody on the panel, everybody in the audience. Look forward to seeing you in the spring. And Brandon and Adam, good luck next season. I hope that spring training begins right on time, February 15. I think any baseball fan is hoping that next season from a public safety perspective is a lot less interesting than the season that just finished.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
For
everyone.
having me.
Thank you,
Have
Mark.
a great night.
Thank you, Brandon. See you guys.
Have a great
Thank
night, everyone.
Yeah.